There's an image that appears in this week's Torah portion that is one of the most visually memorable and familiar in all of biblical literature. It's the image of a celestial ladder, a giant ladder with its bottom rooted on the earth and its top stretching all the way past the clouds to heaven, with angels going up and down upon it. This ladder, Jacob's ladder, so called because the image comes to our forefather Jacob as part of the dream he has one night. And the story is told that the dream comes to him when Jacob is on the run, trying to stay one step ahead of the murderous pursuits of his brother Esau, who's been chasing him down, trying to exact revenge for Jacob's theft of his father's birthright and blessing that were rightfully Esau's. Jacob has put some distance between himself and his brother, and he's confident that, at least for the moment, he's no longer being chased. Jacob finds a quiet place to stop and lies down to rest for the night. And as he stops in this unremarkable place, so unremarkable, in fact, that the Bible doesn't even tell us its name, Jacob lays his head on a stone and falls asleep. And as he dreams, as we know, he sees this vision of the ladder with angels climbing and descending on its luminous rungs. The vision stirs and shakes him, and Jacob awakes from his sleep. Sitting up there alone in the darkness, he cannot help but exclaiming, "Ma Norah hamakom hazeh." How awesome is this place? God was in this place, and I did not know. That moment of Jacob's dream when he is granted the vision of the ladder and the angels and the presence of God becomes clear that it's a watershed moment in Jacob's personal development and spiritual transformation. This dream that he has seems to crack something open for Jacob, prying up some space between heaven and earth and assuring him, maybe for the first time, that there is a deep, invisible, and pervasive structure underlying all of existence. And in that moment, when he sees the ladder and the angels going up and down upon it, Jacob becomes instantly and vividly aware of the presence of God and the nearness of divinity. Presences he had been totally unaware of before, and this new knowledge, this new spiritual awareness, takes his breath away. After Jacob wakes up and utters that simple, half-formed prayer, "How awesome is this place?" Jacob is changed. Gone is the character he was before, the self-centered, scheming, manipulative man-child he used to be. After his dream, Jacob is suddenly less fearful and more confident. He's less self-interested, maybe, and seems to approach his life and his challenges with a new sense of purpose and possibility. There's a new breadth and expansiveness in Jacob's vision and in the way he sees the world around him. For the ancient rabbis who wrote about this dream 15 centuries ago, there was something else that made Jacob's dream and the vision of the ladder significant and noteworthy. Something even more deeply unique about that moment of transformation that was, up until this point in the Torah's story, completely unprecedented. All of the patriarchs, we're told, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and all of the families who had come after them, all of them had profound and enduring connections with divine. All of them discovered the holy in their own unique ways. But Jacob, the rabbis taught, deserves special attention and special credit because he did something that no one else in his family or his tribe had ever been able to do before. Jacob found God in the darkness. They point out, the rabbis do, that Jacob was the first person in the Bible who prays at night. And so they conclude with deep appreciation that it must take a special sort of individual, a special person with deep strength of character and depth of faith to be able to detect a holy presence when it's dark. To sit up and say, Ma Norah hamakom hazeh, how awesome is this place, even when darkness creeps around him and makes him afraid. It's a great lesson, especially today, the idea that even from the earliest strata of our people's history, in the oldest periods of Jewish life and Jewish identity, there is this precedent, reminding us of our unique spiritual superpowers, that we have this certain spiritual gift providing a charter for how to find comfort and reassurance when times are dark. It's a wonderful idea, even before there were synagogues, before there was Jewish nationhood, before even there was an Exodus or a Mount Sinai, before the great global drama of global Jewish peoplehood, there was this one man, trembling and afraid in the darkness, but whose newborn and half-formed faith still gave him the confidence and assurance to know that even when it is dark, we can yet find comfort. It is a relevant lesson for us today as well, when we search for answers and resources and ideas to help us figure out what we can do to find warmth and comfort and brightness and strength when it seems as though the world around us is getting darker. We've all witnessed the ways in which hate and bigotry continue to proliferate in the media, in our civic discourse, even in the public spaces of our cities and in our communities. Sometimes I listen to the words being spoken and written by online influencers and pundits, and for just a moment, I'm not sure if I'm living in 2022 or 1922. It is bizarre and more than a little frightening to see the way that pernicious anti-Semitic tropes and bigoted ideas have found purchase seemingly in every corner of modern culture. One reliable rule of thumb I've learned over the past several months is that when you get up in the morning and you check your phone and you see that one of the phrases trending online is "the Jews," it's not going to be a good day. The spread of hate speech and prejudice is indeed a source of deep and troubling darkness in our world, especially in our own minority religious community. Despite the tiny size of the Jewish community in America, nearly 60% of religious hate crime in our country is directed at Jews. And so it is natural that at this time in our collective history, we should be searching for light, searching for comfort. We want to be able to fix these things that are broken somehow when the world around us feels so fractured and so dim. Well, friends, I have bad news for you, because it is an inescapable truth that our Jewish community will not be able to cure anti-Semitism. We're a tiny community in this country, only some 2% of the American population, but even if we were 22% or 42%, hate of any kind is incredibly difficult to erase. We've learned over the years that hate won't disappear by reasoning with it, or even arguing with it, or certainly not capitulating to it. We can't cure anti-Semitism by assimilating more. We can't cure it by changing our names or trying to not to dress differently or eat differently from those who are different from us. We can't cure it by being nicer to those who hate us. Unfortunately, the victims of bias and prejudice probably can't be the ones to eradicate it at all. Much as I might wish for our robust and resourceful Jewish community to be able to single-handedly eliminate anti-Semitism in America, it seems clear that those outside our community, non-Jewish Americans, our friends and our neighbors, need to take the lead in fixing it. But since my job is to speak to our community, to explore Jewish sources and Jewish texts and Jewish traditions, to work with the Jewish community to figure out what uniquely Jewish solutions might exist in a world like this, the question to us remains, what can we do? Well, while I am convinced that it's important that we continue working to fight against bias and bigotry, anti-Semitism and prejudice directed against us or any minority, one helpful shift for us to consider is to think about how we can move away from looking for remedies and move toward looking for reassurance. From remedies to reassurance. So what are the things that we can be reassured by? What are the resources and reminders that can help us find comfort and calm in difficult times? Well, as we learned from those ancient rabbis, I believe we can take some guidance from Jacob, from that first person who found faith in the darkness. When he awoke from his dream and said, "How awesome is this place?" what were the things that made him say that? Well, by looking at our Torah portion this week, I want to share with you quickly 3 things that he saw, 3 things that brought Jacob to that moment of awareness and inspiration that was granted him from God in his dream. All of them are promises that God makes to Jacob in the dream with the ladder and the angels. First, God reassures Jacob. "Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south." God promises and reassures Jacob about the expansiveness of his people, the presence of community, the diversity and breadth and width of the global Jewish community, not just where he sleeps, trembling and afraid, but all throughout the land that is promised to him and the rest of the world. Especially today when the Jewish world is even more diverse and even more sprawling and interesting and textured, we can take great comfort from being reminded that we are not alone. There are those with us in our community and beyond it, Jews of all types and complexions, Jews of all sorts of observance and custom and extraction, from whom we can gain strength, solidarity, and promise. Number 2, God says to Jacob, "All the families of the earth will bless themselves by you and by your descendants." God reminds Jacob that blessing can be found from reaching deep into the wells of blessing and goodness, from immersing himself in prayer and study and inspiration, these sources of meaning, and let us not fail to mention joy. The things that are ours, our unique texts and traditions and practices, these are things that can bring us comfort and reassurance and happiness when things seem uncertain and difficult. Finally, God says to Jacob, "I am with you," God says. "I will protect you wherever you go, and I will not leave you." Maybe the most important reason God comes to Jacob amid the terrors of the night is to remind him that God's presence is steadfast and reliable and immutable. Even when we feel alone, even when we feel afraid and uncertain, we can be reminded that we are surrounded by the presence of God. Just like the nearness of those invisible angels we convened around us at the beginning of our service this evening, we are surrounded by holy, strengthening presences, that though we may not see them, we can rely on them to make our way through the darkness toward the light. Tonight, in addition to the service that we pray together, we are welcoming and acknowledging a group of new members of our congregation who've stepped forward this year to join their names and their presence to this synagogue community, to make it clear that being part of a collective community of faith is important to them. It is precisely that sort of gesture and that sort of initiative that reminds us how we find comfort when we feel uncertain. We have to reach out to each other to be reminded that we are not alone and that our presence can make others feel accompanied as well. And so when the night is dark, when the fears and uncertainty seem to be gathering around us, let's gain comfort, my friends, from those 3 things. From the reminder of our peoplehood, from the deep and enduring wells of Jewish blessing, of meaningful Jewish devotion and joy, by the nearness of things that are holy and reassuring. There are, my friends, angels in our midst, if we just look for them. And it may just be the case that we will be the angels for others as well. So friends, I wish you strength. I wish you calm, comforting reassurance. And I thank you for your presence, for bringing those blessed gifts to others as well. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Hashem
as we gather